Story 1. Word of note, this is not me, but posting up here for a friend who currently resides overseas. A while back, my friend was selling some items online, and among the items was a water heater. You know, the ones you see in every community hall or church kitchen. It was in working condition, so he listed it online for $150. He got an email from a person who runs a landscaping business offering $100 cash today. Done. 2 weeks later, he got an email saying that it wasn't working. Weird. So, my friend offered to give a full refund or cover repair costs if it was under $100. The guy instead sent an invoice for $400, saying the repairs were done, and if my friend didn't pay it in 48 hours, he'd send a debt collector after him. He paid it out of fear and emailed him the confirmation. The landscaping owner then emailed back saying, "This is the price you sometimes have to pay when selling second-hand electronics," followed by, "Have a great day, don't let this hold you back," with a smiley face at the end of the email. A month later, my friend was in a bar and overheard a girl talking about how her boss, who runs a landscaping firm, tricked some guy selling a water heater. My friend said, "Oh heck, I gotta hear this, do you mind if I join your table?" The girl said sure and told the story. Her boss had bought a broken water heater from a second-hand store for $25 and a working one for $100. He then billed the seller for the repair of the broken one before selling it for $300 to some community group. My friend asked, "Who did this so I don't hire that guy to fix up my yard?" Laughs all around. She said the company name, and lo and behold, it was on the email of the guy my friend sold the water heater to. He was the fool in the story. He told me he was pretty angry about it, but then COVID hit, so he had other stuff to worry about. 18 months later, he was browsing the website he originally sold the water heater on and saw a bunch of landscaping materials, shovels, gardening stuff, wheelbarrows, lights for working at night, drills, nail guns, some construction materials, and a generator. Now in my friend's location, apparently, if you're selling a generator, you need to have a warrant of fitness for it proving that it works, it's safe, no frayed wires, etc. Most people ignore it, and he saw that this generator was being sold by the landscaping firm. This generator, he said, just by looking at it, there was no way it would have a warrant of fitness. Word of note, failure for a business to provide a warrant of fitness upon request for a generator after 2 weeks when reported to the official departments and enforced by the court, the punishment is a hefty fine. And the courts often force the seller to refund the affected party and pay any costs that they incurred. He talked to his roommate, who agreed they would go 50-50 on the generator, but he would transfer the money. Now, my friend had never met the landscaping firm owner face-to-face. When selling the water heater, he left it outside, and pickup was confirmed via his security camera. When he got there, it was clear that the owner, this old grumpy-looking man who enjoyed yelling at his employees, had emptied out his storage unit. The owner was very much, as it is, no refund, and the roommate showed him the transfer confirmation, and they took the generator for $800. No warrant of fitness provided. They then took it to a friend of theirs who is an electrician, and he agreed to check it and give an invoice for repairs. To quote the friend, "It would be cheaper to buy a new generator, and to be honest, this generator shouldn't have been sold. It should have been scrapped." They also found that the main identifier number had been scratched off, but not a second number that is often recorded as well on the warrant of fitness for tracking purposes. So they got in contact with the seller, telling him the cost for repair was around $5,000. He promptly told them that he's not paying, as it is, no refund, to which they then asked, "Have you got the warrant of fitness for this generator?" Silence for 2 days. They followed up with another email asking for it. No response. They then asked again and got an email from him saying he'd take it back for $800. They said no, we want the warrant of fitness, and they got no response. They emailed him every day for 2 weeks. Nothing. So they printed out the original item listing that had been screenshotted and had been archived on the website and reported him to the website and then the government. 4 months later, my friend was in court, and the guy went up to him. He told him that he would take back the generator for $800 and that my friend and his roommate would be going in to tell the judge that the seller had refunded them and that they wanted it all dropped. That's what was happening here. Full stop. End of story. They were doing what they were told to do. My friend said no. So they went into the courtroom, and it was over very quickly. The inspector the government sent out to inspect the generator stated that it was in poor condition, shouldn't have been sold, was highly unsafe, and that the seller had tried to get the generator a warrant of fitness in early 2021, but instead had been told that it was to be repaired or scrapped and that it was not to be sold. They identified it by a second number on the generator that they took down in the original attempt to get it warrant of fitness, which had not been scratched out like the first. The judge ordered the landscaping firm owner to refund the roommate the $800, pay the $5,000 for repairs to the generator, and was ordered to pay a $10,000 fine, which would be given directly to my friend's roommate as the affected party. When they left the courtroom, the owner was furious and told them that under no uncertain terms was he paying them a penny more and that he couldn't understand what he had done to deserve such treatment. To which my friend said, "Remember the water heater?" He gave him a very confused look. "Remember the water heater you bought for $100? Well, I do because I sold it to you and I know that you had a different one repaired and invoiced me for it." His jaw was on the floor, and to hit it home, he said, "It's a pain, isn't it, when what goes around comes around, especially when it accumulates interest. You have 48 hours to pay, or a debt collector will be contacted. Remember, this is the price you sometimes have to pay when selling secondhand electronics. Have a great day. Don't let this hold you back." And they left. He paid the $50 2 days later. My friend and the roommate split the $10,000 50/50 as they agreed a combination of rent payments and study stuff. They got the generator repaired, got a warrant of fitness for it, and sold it for $1,000 with a newly replaced identifier number. They then went out for a wonderful dinner and night out in town. Story 2. This happened last week, so I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. Firstly, I love guns. Nearly everything about them, the sound, the recoil, the fireball. What I don't like is when an irresponsible person is given one. When irresponsible people have guns, others can get hurt. So, when I saw an entitled parent and her 9-year-old son at a gun range, I was initially happy that this kid was being taught at a young age. I go to my bay right next to the entitled parent and son, who was actually quite nice, and then I see the entitled parent's handgun pointed at me. So, I jump out of the way of the barrel and tell her to keep it downrange. She scoffs at me, pulls the not loaded nonsense, to which I reply that I don't care, always treat it like it's loaded. I had 2 guns with me, my Springfield XD40 subcompact handgun and my R15. Now, continuing the story. The kid goes up to shoot. He starts firing, and when he's done, he sets the gun down so that it points at me. Being a kid, and probably new, I tell him to always keep it downrange, for safety. He acknowledges this and points the gun back, when I feel a firm smack to the back of my head. Entitled parent, don't talk to my son like that. Me? I'm trying to teach him gun safety. If anybody gets shot at one of these ranges, the place can get shut down. Don't talk back to me. She moves to hit me again, to which I hover my hand over my XD40, which was resting on the table. That sends her enough signal to back off. When she goes up to shoot, she pulls the trigger, to which nothing happens. She points the gun at me again, to which this time I yell at her to keep it downrange. She decides to ignore me. Me, ma'am, if the gun misfires, keep it downrange because it may have had a delayed firing. Entitled parent, be quiet, you fool. I go back to shooting my handgun, and once again, I see the gun pointed at me. The worst part? She was fiddling with the trigger. For those who don't know, the rule is that you can point your gun at somebody if you feel they genuinely jeopardize your life. I wasn't quite there yet, so I called over range safety. Range safety told her off, and she listened until she did the same thing again. Now, I point my gun at her. Entitled parent, what are you doing? Me, keep your gun downrange. Range safety comes over to calm me down, and he takes the gun from the entitled parent. Then she tries to throttle range safety. So I take the gun from him and field strip it disassembly in case of emergency. I noticed the safety was on, but the gun was fully loaded. So I point my gun at her and tell her to get on her knees with her hands behind her head. I'll sue you for this nonsense. I say to the little kid, never repeat anything you have heard today until you are older. Then, back to the entitled parent. Go ahead. I'll just show the camera footage. Range safety calls the cops, and when they arrive, I field strip both my guns. I got cuffed, asked a few questions, and then released to put my guns in their cases. The entitled parent is screaming bloody murder as she's taken away, and the kid is just crying. So, I go to the kid and try to calm him down. The entitled parent then screams that I'm trying to kidnap her son. I just backed away. The kid had calmed down, and I put my hands up. The cops closed the car door, and then they got contacts for the kid's dad. Last I heard, she's getting community service hours. Story 3. This happened about 2 hours ago. We drove over an hour to an outlet mall to get my son some new shoes for school. We went into a brand name shoe shop and picked out a suitable pair. We often buy from this shop, and my wife has a loyalty card there. We went to pay for the shoes with half on card and half cash. No go, not accepting cash for payment. Now, I know this is only legal in our country if they advise shoppers in advance, and I have seen no signs advising of a no cash policy. The manager leaned over from the next register and advised the sign was at the door. I walked to the entrance, and there was the sign at ankle height and about 2 inches high. Due to COVID, no cash accepted. So I went back to the counter and advised that I felt their sign was too small and not easily visible. The manager, in a snotty voice, said something along the lines of, "It meets our legal obligations." So I questioned their lay-by policy. No deposit or fees and up to 4 weeks to pay. Okay, we will pay a deposit on the card, leaving the amount in cash we had as the remainder. The cashier put the payment through and logged into the loyalty card. Then I asked to pay off the lay-by with the cash. Manager, sorry, as I said, we can't accept cash. Me? Sorry, but it's illegal for you to not accept cash to pay off a debt. Checkmate, buddy. The manager looked at me, smiled, and advised the staff to accept the payment. We walked out with shoes, all paid up. Checked other shops on the way out and didn't see any others not accepting cash.